So this ribbon deserves the whole video, so stay tuned. What is up, guys? You're tuning in to Nikki MGTV for another military video for all your military video needs. As always, you can hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, or down in the comments below. And as always, we have a live stream every Friday, 7 p.m. California time, where I answer your questions live. And as always, you can donate as little as $1 to the Patreon link down below, and you get a couple little perks as well, and you help the channel grow. So I got told by somebody that a Master Chief was watching my military ribbons video, which is right there, which you can go visit as well, which kind of gives a general insight of some of the very basic ribbons that you could find in the military. Now, I felt that the higher ranking ribbons that I'm going to mention specifically in this video as well, or more rare type ribbons, I guess you could say, are going to kind of need their own video to kind of discuss them rather than just the basics, you know, stuff that you're going to see more often. Also, I did notice there was a huge outcry of people saying, man, the American military gets ribbons for anything. When really, that's not totally true. It's just seemed very basic because the fact that you were thinking that, oh, everyone has these ribbons, and I think that may have came off wrong. But I want to clarify a little bit on this one. This is not a ribbon not many people get. And the ribbon listed here is called the Combat Action Ribbon. Now, as we are now in the year 2017, or maybe later if you're watching this later down the line, we are seeing a new breed of leadership here in the military across the board. You have to think that in the early 2000 to 2010, there was much more combat happening. And so there were a lot more people that were E2, E3, E4 seeing combat. Now we're seeing a lot of those guys at the E7 and senior enlisted ranks, and also the officer ranks. So it's important to realize that there is now a divide between the people that have a combat action ribbon and those that don't. I also want to say this is entirely for the Navy and Marine Corps and Coast Guard only. Army is a whole separate thing, as they have the Combat Infantryman badge, they have the Combat Medical badge, and they've got another badge as well. But this is specifically to these three branches, which is nicknamed the CAR because that just makes sense, Combat Action Ribbon. But yes, it's the CAR, the notorious, the one, the only. If you see it, you gotta recognize it. I also have to disclose totally, I do not have a combat action ribbon. I've never been to combat. I've never seen combat. I've never been on a combat deployment. So you can write down at your little keyboard right now, pogue, 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 and pogue again. But I figured I don't want to take away anything from anybody that has earned it. And I hope that the guys that I've served with, worked with, and the people that are in the Navy or in the Marine Corps actually have this ribbon. I hope I meet your expectations. And if you guys think I missed anything, make sure you leave it down in the comments below, because obviously you guys that have earned it are going to be the subject matter experts, probably more so than me. Now, this ribbon at any military uniform shop is going to run around $1 to $2, but this has created a huge divide over the past several years between those that have it and do not have it. This is because many people feel that because we are like a fighting force, that if you have one of these, it would make you a more legitimate leader because you have more experience towards the total mission. Obviously, if we need to do something such as be in combat, you want the guy that has been in combat to obviously lead people because they have experience, and those are probably some of the most stressful situations anyone could ever encounter in the military. This ribbon dates back to 17 February 1969 during the Vietnam era, where it was first established. And this is not just being shot at. This is actually much more than that. So while the name is Combat Action Ribbon, there are much more specific guidelines for any ribbon, for that fact, of how these are actually awarded. Now, this award can be given to anybody at the rank of 06 in the Marine Corps, Navy, or Coast Guard and below. The requirement is that you must have rendered satisfactory performance under enemy fire. Very cool about this ribbon is that there are retroactive awards for this one. So for the Navy, this actually dates back to December 7th, 1941. And if that date does not ring a bell in your head, I'll give you a little reminder. This was the day Pearl Harbor was attacked. So I thought that was very interesting how they brought it back full circle so people that were in World War II could get this award. The Coast Guard Combat Action Ribbon is dated back to 1st of May 1975 if they had seen combat during that time. And I also want to let you guys know that actually it wasn't until 2008 where the combat action ribbon for the Coast Guard was established. And that's because in previous years, what happened was the Coast Guard was typically under the Navy, so they were awarded the combat action ribbon. But as things heated up over in Iraq and Afghanistan, I don't know if this was like a realization that we needed to create something different for the Coast Guard to differentiate from the Department of the Navy. What I find very interesting about this award is the fact that it's actually not a medal. And when I mean a medal like this is actually only a ribbon, so only the square ribbon that you wear on the left side of your chest, or if you're in dress uniform, it would be on the right side, and then your medals are on the left. So it's interesting to me that there are other things such as the expert pistol qualification, which has a medal, but this one doesn't. I didn't understand the meaning behind that. While this is highly regarded in the military community, it's just very interesting that it actually doesn't have a medal. So some interesting facts are that this ribbon is actually not awarded even if you get the Purple Heart. They're not two ribbons that are exclusive to each other. So meaning though, even though you get hit by enemy fire, that does not mean that you would earn the combat action ribbon. Also, just because you are in the area or you have indirect fire, this does not constitute you being eligible for the combat ribbon either. In order to receive this, you have to actually have some kind of counter attack or fire on the enemy as well. Also, this award cannot be given to any civilian, Army, U.S. Air Force, or foreign military as well. This is where it gets very tricky because the fact that the Marine Corps, Navy side does not really convert directly to this side. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Like I said before, there's a combat infantry badge, there's a combat medical badge, and then there's also the combat action badge. I'm sorry, there's just too many badges and C's and stuff like that. But definitely if you're Army, represent down below in the comments. If you're in the Marine Corps or you're joining the Marine Corps, I want to give full disclosure. For you guys, this is very strict because even though you could be a Marine serving with the Army, you are not entitled to wear any of the combat patches that the Army is giving out. So what I'm trying to say is there's no direct conversion from the Army patches of combat service type stuff that directly correlate to a combat action ribbon. Now that Army Command can and probably would for you if you did do some kind of combat, be able to submit for you to receive a combat action ribbon. This applies to me directly, but the fact that I'm Navy, this is kind of a benefit. So if you are in the Navy and you receive one of these, you actually kind of have a little bit easier process, and this is because of the fact that if you do receive one of the combat badges from the Army side, you can actually submit this, and the Chief of Naval Operations is actually the one that evaluates whether or not that you met the criteria for a combat action ribbon. At that point, it would just be updated into the award system, and then it would look like a combat action ribbon. There's been some very interesting times where the combat action ribbon has been given out, and some of them have been very unexpected. So I will tell you that this award is not given as far as like an entire unit or something that is given at a command level. This is something on an individual basis that is awarded. And I want to say the Navy is very different because you're not going to be able to individually single out somebody on a ship, for example. But the attack on the USS Cole awarded everybody on the crew the combat action ribbon. I actually had to work with one of these people because the pharmacist I worked with was a prior surface warfare officer. Now, to give you the irony of a pharmacist wearing a combat action ribbon is, A, there are no pharmacists on a destroyer. So that's very interesting because you're like, what is your backstory, right? And then also it's because of the fact that pharmacists are actually on like a continuous shore duty pretty much unless you're like going to Afghanistan or you're doing some kind of like tour on the Mercy or doing some kind of humanitarian mission. So we always had people asking like, how did you get a combat action ribbon as a pharmacist? But you never know someone's past, so that was pretty awesome to work with somebody, especially because you guys are going to learn so much about that when you guys are in boot camp, if you're going to Navy boot camp, that is. But definitely a part in history that you guys should know either way, no matter what branch you're joining. I hope this gave you guys some insight on one of the more rare ribbons that you guys could see here in the fleet, in the Marine Corps, Navy, or the Coast Guard. So as always, guys, if you guys like the channel, you can always hit me up on Snapchat, Instagram, or down in the comments below. And as always, we have a live stream every Friday, 7 p.m. California time. I answer your questions live. And as always, you can donate as little as $1 down to the Patreon link down below. Help the channel grow. As always, I love you guys. I'll see you next time. Don't forget